This is not your little sister's radio station. If you're easily offended, turn it off now.
And I'm going to stop that right there. And I'll tell you for why, because, you know, we tend to view the news and see the news on a daily basis, so the next day the news is gone. The news is second rate. It's tomorrow's chip paper, and I'm fed up with it. People forget where we've come from, what we've done as a country, the atrocities that have been caused in our country throughout the years, be it the IRA. Did the IRA ever get classed as radical? They didn't, did they? But we constantly are being told by these people that it's the minority. There's only a few. Well, I'm just going to put something out to you, and I do apologise first of all. There are things that are said on this radio station because I believe they should be said. If we can't enter into some sort of dialogue, if we can't have a discussion through people shut you down with these words called racist, where can we possibly go? How can we go forward from this? We can't. We need to talk about the problems in this country. Okay? So I will offend many, probably, but please just stick with it. Okay? We need to talk. We need to open up a dialogue. We need, actually, to find the problem and eradicate the problem. I am a problem solver. Okay? I am what you would call probably an all-round general builder, very good at what I do, but I come across problems every day. I must then solve those problems. Now, I'm going to say a few things at the moment, and I'm just going to point you to something that's just been said in the chat room on Motivate Radio, off a Twitter account from Luton J that's looking right now. He's in the chat room. Breaking news, many people wounded in shooting in Lille, France, at a metro station. Sorry, that just... where's it gone? I do apologise. Huge police activity. You see, this is not literally something we've only just seen. And the more we see, the more we normalise, the more we accept, the more we see that as just being something else. I'll give an example. Years ago, people were stabbed in the street, and you went, oh my God, somebody was stabbed. What's happened now? I'll tell you what's happened now. There are over 100 stabbings a day in the Greater London area. It doesn't get reported on. And when it does get reported on, because it's fatal, we go, just another stabbing. Cancer. And I do apologise for this, for anyone that knows anybody suffering with cancer. Cancer years ago was relatively unheard of. And when somebody knew someone that had cancer, it was a massive shock to everybody that somebody had cancer. Nowadays, everybody has cancer, and we say someone else has got cancer. This is being normalised, ladies and gentlemen, okay? It is being normalised by these people, the media, and us accepting the inevitable, okay? Now, I'm just going to point you to something here before I call Graham. Excuse me. And that is this. Back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, when people came to our country, they came to our country for a better life. Okay, they could have come from Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Raqqa, you know, they could have come from anywhere in the Middle East. They came here to get away from the barbarity of Islam. They came here. And although we would like those to integrate, we would want to integrate with them, our governments have seen fit to actually put them all in the same place because they now feel more at home than they would have done integrating with us. Okay, so what you're in actual fact doing actually is you're creating secular ghettos. Now, there are people leaving the Middle East to come to European countries that wish to get away from the barbarity of this ideology, and we are now putting them with people that like that ideology because we believe they must be together. Assimilation and integration don't really work anymore, and that's where we sit. So in the 50s, 60s, 70s, when these people came over, no problems. We can go back to Libya. Look at the pictures on Google of Libya from the 70s and 80s where they're walking around in bikinis. What happened? Why did they stop wearing bikinis? They stopped wearing bikinis because of Islam. Okay? Now, I did say this is going to upset some people. I hope that you're going to share this. Keep giving the likes and the loves, because I'm going to say something that needs to be said. Okay? Now, we have seen a massive change across the Middle East, and yes, it is to do with our foreign policy, not my foreign policy, but certainly the government's foreign policy on getting involved in somebody else's country where you really don't need to be involved in. And I'm going to say that, I'm going to put it out there. We do not need to be in the countries that we're in at the moment. If they want to maim, kill, burn, rape, behead each other, then let them get on with it. This has stemmed from 9/11 and a retaliatory attack that I don't really want to be a part of. The government don't speak for me. Okay, now we do know as well that some of the armoury that we've got at the moment, you can drop it on a 10 pence piece. There are not innocent civilians and women and children being killed in these countries. It's not happening. But the rhetoric that comes out of these countries, and we've all seen the fake news, we've seen it ourselves. Okay, these people are not being slaughtered in their thousands by our military forces. But the rhetoric that comes out of these countries is that we're killing women and children, we're raping their women and children. They're feeding this monster that is Islam in our country now to the youngsters that believe, even though they were born in Britain, that they need to do something to stand up for their brothers and sisters, because the news they're getting out of the Middle East is that we're just slaughtering everybody. And this is where the problem arises. Okay? And we have got a certain set of people that came to our country, be it black, Pakistani, Muslim, Christian, doesn't matter, that wanted to integrate into this country and actually make this country better. We, with open arms, invited them in, and they did the jobs that apparently we didn't want to do. It's been absolutely fantastic, okay? Until Blair and Mandelson and the rest of them opened the doors. And what you've in fact done is to have a westernised idea of Islam, which is what we have in this country, or did have a decade and a half ago. We had an idea of Islam and an idea of being Muslim, okay? And that was fine. That was fine. What we're doing now, and what Europe are doing now, is bolstering up the idea of the Eastern idea of what Islam is. So these people have come to other countries, they want to get away from it. They live in these countries, lovely. They created secular ghettos, they want to get away from the barbarity that is Islam, and that's absolutely fine. And then what they've done is open the floodgates to these people with the Eastern idea of Islam, an Eastern idea of it. And then they come in and they put those in those secular ghettos, those secular societies. And the people that don't want to be Muslim are having to be practicing Muslims, because to go against them, you will be an apostate. And the punishment is death. I can't. You read it's not even just about the Quran, it's about the trilogy. It's about the Quran, the Hadith and the Surah. All right, this is what goes on, and all the while you import these people through into Europe, they will bring that Middle Eastern idea. And we've seen Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Raqqa, Afghanistan, Libya. We've seen the idea of what Islam is. That is, they are orthodox Muslims. They are orthodox Islamists, and we're letting them stream into our countries to teach these people that have been westernised, because they can't stand that. The Muslims can't stand the fact that there's a westernised idea of Islam. And they're being flooded. They're flooding these countries. They're flooding the West at the moment. And these will now bolster up the ideals, coming fresh from a country with the Eastern ideals, to tell the Westerners that you're doing it all wrong. And this is what you need to be doing. Look at the books. Look at the trilogy. Look at the Quran. Look at the Hadiths. Look at the Surah. Now, we're talking about somebody here that they actually caused mayhem. One person in London shut it down. One person. All right. Now I've got another video that I've recorded on the green screen. I've not done it yet. I took some footage today from the Houses of Parliament, and I'm going to put myself in front of the Houses of Parliament when I put this video out, because it's very important. And it was by Brummy Paul. He sent me that, and I'm going to read that out. And it is that if one person can cause that many deaths, and there are 3,000 people running around this country with those ideals, that ideology stuck in their head, they're living by the trilogy of the books, then that means that there's another at least 8,997 people waiting to die in this country. Now, I know it sounds wrong, okay? I know it sounds wrong. I know that people, I'm not even looking at the chat at the moment because you can all take care of the business in there. I know that there are people saying, well, you're a racist. Well, I'm sorry. And the old argument is that I can't be a racist against an ideology, against people. You can be black, white, you could be Chinese, you could be absolutely any race, colour, creed you wanted to be and join Islam. That is not a race. And it is not racist to talk about these subjects. We lost lives and people were maimed and injured. Their lives will never ever be the same again. Their families' lives will never ever be the same again. And what we're dealing with now is the fact that we saw a video of Theresa May being rushed out of Parliament because she's much more important than us. We live in this every day. We live in societies every day where there are no-go zones. They do tell you not to walk your dogs. There are Sharia patrols, and there have been Sharia patrols. You know, we are walking in blindfolded into an oblivion because we are allowing this to carry on. And then we can go a step further, and the step further will be this: that there are now 12 Muslim mayors in our country, one of which runs our capital city, one of which actually turned around and called moderate Muslims an Uncle Tom. He shared a stage with extremists, and he's the mayor of our capital city. What sort of a message does that send out to people? What do we do next? And then we get Theresa May on the TV, had nothing to do with Islam. Well, I think you'll find it has got absolutely everything to do with Islam. He read the trilogy. At 52 years old, he was indoctrinated. What hope have the youngsters got when our foreign policy might be something, and the news, the fake news, and the propaganda coming out of the Middle East will tell these people they need to be radicalised to look after their brothers and sisters, even though they were born in our country. You see, the problems that exist are greater than we first perceive. We must look at the mosques. We don't regulate the mosques. There's been plenty of undercover programmes, dispatches, the BBC, etc., etc., that have actually been in there. And the women, I would say, in this country are actually worse than the men. And they will indoctrinate. We have imams preaching their hatred for the kuffar, the infidel, the unbeliever, to mosques in our country via the internet. We have prisons that statistically, over how many Muslims there are in this country, which 4 or 5%, 6% tops, 85% are in prison on that small number. And why are they in prison? Because they commit crimes, because they groom, they rape. Look at Rotherham. It's not 1,400 children anymore. And I'm fed up with people keep saying the 1,400 in Rotherham. It's over 2,000 now, children. And up to 1 million. Alexis J did a report and said it's up to 1 million children in this country have been at the hands of these grooming and rape gangs. And we just carry on, because that's the English way. Stiff upper lip. Carry on, carry on. Don't worry, old chap. Everything's going to be just fine. And while these traitors, these quislings in Parliament don't stop this. I saw Nigel Farage earlier talking about something. We can't have an open border policy without terrorism. Well, I'm sorry, but this guy lived here all his life, 52 years, and he actually, at some point, because his life became so bad, wanted to be a martyr. And he actually drove on the pavement on Westminster Bridge. You know, it's not about bombs anymore. It's not about guns. It's not about swords. It's about using whatever you have to be a weapon. And the car, you know, I mean, I really can't get my head around why this is happening. And to have these people running around our country under these so-called watch lists from our security services, for want of a better word, people, is absolutely pissing me right off. These people with that ideology that need to maim and kill, or might have the ideas to maim and kill somebody in this country, shouldn't be here. Am I wrong? We'll go back to the story about the pit bulls. A few pit bulls years ago, we're talking back in the 90s, pit bulls. They attacked children in the hands of the wrong owners. Muslims reading the book, maiming people, killing people. And the whole breed was banned because of the actions of a few. But it's okay now to call a minority, and they're not really extremists. Well, I'm going to give you a figure right now that proves otherwise. And then you've got to look at how many countries they reside in as to what the percentage might be in each country. There are 1.6 billion Muslims on this planet, and it's growing exponentially because Islam apparently is the fastest growing religion. 1.6 billion Muslims. Now I'm going to cut this down a little bit. 10% apparently are classed as radicals. 10%. That is, my friends, 160 million people on this planet that want nothing more than to kill you because you don't believe. You pay the jizya, you convert, or you die. It's in the books. What more needs to be said? Please. And the actual figures are 10 to 15% or 15 to 20%. So you're talking 160 to 320 million radicals. Are they radical? What is a radical and a moderate? I class myself as a Christian. I don't go to church. I live in a Christian country. I take on the beliefs. I go to court. I hold my hand on the Bible. I take myself as a moderate Christian. What makes a moderate Muslim? I'll tell you what makes a moderate Muslim. A person that has never read the Quran, the Hadith, the Surah, that were born into this being a Muslim. And they are used to the culture of that people. So the FGM, the beating of your wives, the wearing of the burqa, they don't even know why they're doing it, but they do it because culture and their history and their heritage says they have to. That's why. Nothing more, nothing less. What is the burqa? The burqa is the oppression of women. And the women that wear it say, I want to wear it. No, you don't. No, you don't. And I don't care what people are saying in the chat room at the moment. I'm not even looking on Facebook Live. I don't care. These things have to be said. So whilst we have Muslims that left these countries to get away from Islam because they knew it was barbaric. There's actually a clip I've got of Nigel Farage talking to somebody on LBC. He left the Islamic faith and tells you all about it. Inez Cyrus tells you all about why she left and what that faith is about. There is a terrorist's son, Hamas, I do believe. His dad's a leader of Hamas. He left it at great risk to himself to try and tell everybody else what this is. So please tell me now, do you feel safe? Why are the government actually flooding our lands at the moment with these people with this fresh idea of this Eastern Islamism? Where they stone, they behead. Look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia head up the UN Human Rights Council. The UN Human Rights Council. And I've seen videos where they literally put a woman down on her knees and chop her head off in the street and people are taking photographs. If you believe Islam to be different in this country, then I will applaud you because I do believe it is different as well. And it could have been kept that way if you didn't import the East with the fresh idea of what Islam is. Okay? That's where it's going wrong. We could have had the assimilation and the integration. We could have gotten fine with these people. I know Muslims. I know the Muslim round the shop in Herne Bay, where I used to live. Very nice man. You don't see him putting a mat on the floor, pointing towards Mecca when everyone's in the shop and praying. These people do this to prove a point. To prove a point that they can. Because that, my friends, is the freedom of a so-called religion. You look at the imams in the Middle East, they will tell you it is not a religion. It is a political ideology. There is no separation between church and state. And yet we tend to say it's a religion. Theresa May will come out and say it's got nothing to do with Islam. Well, it's very funny because he's read the books on Islam. He's been to the mosques. He believes in Islam in its entirety. He is an orthodox Islamist. And one man brought our capital city to a standstill. Just let that sink in for a minute. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do before I rant off too much and probably turn people away from the live feed, because I do have things to say and I think we all have something to say. I believe we all need a voice. I believe that the politicians living in gated communities, I believe the left that are still living at their mums and dad's house, driving around in BMWs in Richmond and places like that where there is no immigration, will laugh at us and call us racist because they don't suffer under it. It's not hard to work out what's going on. The government are doing this on purpose. That's what they're doing. It's either for some sort of police state. Do they want a police state? Look at the armed police around London today. Do they fear the rise of the far right? Because actually, to be labelled as far right is just for somebody to have a different ideal. I don't believe the left are doing the right thing. But Fabianism, look it up. Fabianism. Look up the Fabians. Look up the shield, like the motto, the picture of what Fabians are. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. These people have infiltrated our schools, colleges, universities, our political system. Since the 1860s, 1840s, they've infiltrated. And you wonder why these people are being taught these certain things and why the left now are so adamant that we should all just live together. Why is that? We should have a feeling of being tribal. We should have a feeling of looking after our own people. It's been removed. Not from all, and certainly not from me, but it's been removed. And this is something we've got to deal with. The government living, the people in Parliament and the government, you know, are not normal people. They don't see the world and perceive it as what we do. They don't have to go out to the shop because someone else does their shopping, or they ring a cardo, you know. They don't have to walk down the street to get a bus at 11 o'clock at night and get accosted by people. These people live in a bubble that certainly isn't ours. And until they know the reality, they will carry on regardless. And I actually thought the other day that, although it's very fucking sad, and my first swear word tonight, I do apologise, it's very, very sad what happened. I was in bits today watching the bagpiper outside the Royal Courts of Justice. Brought a lump to my throat and tears in my eyes. That there's still some patriotism going on. We're still trying to look after each other. And I went down to Parliament Square, Westminster. I saw the flowers laying there. You know, I've seen the people changing their statuses and changing their profile pictures to English flags. You know, all the while this is going on and we can't have a voice because we are called certain names. We can't combat this. And we need a voice. We need to be able to communicate our fears without the prejudice of the left calling us certain names. You see, it isn't as easy as we think it is. Are the government doing this for population replacement? We do know that they can have 4 wives and up to 25, 30 children. And the whites at the moment, and I'm saying whites because I've got to say it, I do apologise. It's not racist in any way to mention my own race. Our own race. We're having 1.7 children. Just over demographics alone, they do say, actually, that by 2030, 2040, we've lost it. Did you know that the Caucasians, the white race on this planet, are actually, at the moment, a minority? Why is it then that these people want to flood all the Western countries with these people, with these Eastern ideals of Islam? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I know there's we could change things. Of course we could. And we've been talking about this for a long time. And certainly the listeners that I've got in the chat room at the moment, and obviously you lot on the live feed and on YouTube, you know, if you know me and know what I talk about, no holds barred. I don't care what I talk about because these things need to be brought into the open. I don't care what people call me. You can call me what you like. I don't feel superior to anybody. That's the definition of racism. I will not deny a service to somebody else because they're a different colour, race or religion. It's not about that. I don't particularly hate Muslims. I hate the ideology. I hate the trilogy of books. I hate the Quran, the Hadith, the Surah, for actually brainwashing these people into it. The first victim of Islam are the Muslims. The second are the women. The third will be the children when they genitally mutilate them. We have a massive halal problem in our country. They have the monopoly on the meat. They have the monopoly on the certification. The certification industry is worth $5.7 trillion a year. And then we're wondering where the mosque money's coming from. Who's funding this? Who's funding that? Everything we buy is certified halal. Go and do your shopping next week. I'm going to put this right out there. Go and do your shopping next week and just fill up your trolley as per usual, and then go out, put it in your boot of your car, and have a little look and see what's got the halal sign on it. And then what you want to do, because you don't want to eat it because you're Christians and you can't eat anything offered to an idol, you take it back. You take it back to the returns. What's going to happen, do you think? They're going to put it back on the shelf? Of course not. What they're going to do in actual fact is leave it on the side and ask you why you bought it back. Well, it's halal, I don't want it. What do you mean you don't want it? What's the matter with halal? Nobody knows what halal is. Nobody knows what it means and what it entails and the certification behind it and the money laundering, I would say. The money laundering behind it. It's given as a charitable donation to certain HFA, HSA industries that literally take that money. There's no audit trail, we don't know where the money goes. How can we bring some sort of enlightenment or awareness over this? If we all did the same thing and did our week shopping and then took back our halal bacon, I'm joking, but you took something back that was halal, a frozen product won't go back on the shelf. If it's gone out of the store and come back in, they can't put it back on the shelf. Somebody somewhere is going to lose money. I'm not inciting anything here. This is an experiment, an awareness experiment. Take it back in to the returns. And sooner or later, the reports will get back and they will say, well, why didn't these people want that in all of the supermarkets across our country? If we all did the same thing every week and hit them in their pocket, they'd go, well, they don't really want halal. Why don't they want it? That's where the awareness comes in, my friends. Now, I did ask the other day on a post on Facebook, we've got something we want to do. I want 1,000 likes, so it's not worth it. We've got 400. I've just put it out there for you. Do your week shopping, get it into your boot, go through your shopping. Make some effort, because we are funding this. They give out Qurans in the street, hardback Qurans. Where do you think these are coming from? Who do you think's funding the mosques? Who do you think's funding the Islamic schools? The Trojan horse plot? We've got to wake up, ladies and gentlemen. I can only show you what I see. I'm quite a logical thinker. I'm not an idiot. I'm no good at maths, but I'm not an idiot. And I know, or I think I know what's going on. I think I know where the money's going. And still, we keep buying Kingsmill, we keep buying Cadbury, we keep buying this thing. We need to hit them in their pocket. And sooner or later, the supermarkets are going to go, well, sorry, but they're not buying that because apparently it's halal. That puts something out of business. That puts the certification out of business. That then costs them money. There are many, many ways we can combat what goes on. And it is not by attacking Muslims. Because most Muslims have never even read the Quran. They don't know what the Hadith and the Surah are. They don't know what it entails. They were just born a Muslim. And a great story that I read a while ago and saw the video to was a woman that was born in an Islamic country. And she, because these people won't allow the women to learn, in Saudi Arabia, not allowed to drive. Just have a think about it. Women are worth half of a man. The oppression of women. We're allowing that. And the left are standing with them and marching for women's rights, but love the burqa. Doesn't make any sense. But certainly this story, she left the country she was in and came to Europe. And she loved it. She got away from being Muslim and converted to Christianity. You know, as soon as she did that, in the area she lived, she had death threats. But she didn't know what being Islamic was about. She didn't know what Islam was about because she'd never read the books. But she perceived herself to be Muslim. How many more do that? You know, what makes a moderate Muslim? I believe myself to be a moderate Christian. I don't go to church. I don't read the Bible, but I live in a Christian country. So now you can imagine what a moderate Muslim is. These people haven't read the Quran, but they reside in a mainly Muslim country, a mainly Islamic country. And then they come to other countries to get away from it, get put into a secular ghetto where everyone else believes in that Before you know it, these people have to start believing in the trilogy again, the Hadith, the Quran, the Hadith, and the Surah. Right, it's about time I made a call because I've been talking for long enough, and I do apologise if I'm talking out of turn or you don't like what I'm saying. But a lot of the time, you know, the truth is very unpalatable, and I do apologise for that. But things have to be said, and certainly on the Rant show, on the Friday Night Live show, on Motivate Radio, via live Facebook and via YouTube, which is the first time actually because my fibre optic broadband went on Thursday, and I'm absolutely loving this, and I'm loving the fact that you're taking the time to listen. I don't know all the ins and outs. I'm not a scholar, but I know what I see. I know what I see at the moment isn't right. So I'm going to get hold of Graham, I think, because we need to have a little chat. So I'm going to bell him now. Let me know you can hear it, ladies and gentlemen, please, because we're running on speakers and doing all sorts of stuff here.
Mr. Bossman!
Oh, hello. I was on video as well. I'm not going on video because that will take up probably too much of your bandwidth, and before we know it, Facebook will start cutting out and so will YouTube. But great to see you, young man. Like I say, I do apologise to the people for saying things how I think they are, and it is very blunt from me. I don't mince my words, Graham, and I don't want to mince them, and I think that anybody that does are just stifling the truth. What's your take on what might be a moderate Muslim as opposed to some sort of 52-year-old teacher that just all of a sudden one day wants to run people over?